All right, hi everyone, and it's great to see you all here. My name is Roberto Gomez-Valadez, and I'm the president of College Democrats at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Sitting here to my side is Dominic Maino, our legislative director. Before we begin, I did want to take the time to thank the Cook County Young Democrats and the Young Democrats of Illinois for their help in making this event a reality. We'd also like to thank candidates and their teams for taking the time to attend this event. And I'd also like to thank all of our audience members for being here tonight.
Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the life and achievements of the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. He was a titan of civil rights and a Chicago icon. We all grieve his loss.
Our format will be as follows. Candidates will have 1 minute each for opening statements before we move to our general policy and audience question segments, where they will have 45 seconds each. Then, there will be a rapid fire round where you'll be asked to give 1 to 2 word responses. We respectfully ask that you all not make direct attacks towards each other, as we are here to listen to your political stances and policy ideas. In the event that any of you want to respond to a claim that is brought up, you are allotted 1 30-second rebuttal for the entire debate. We're ready to get started right here. To start off, we'd like each of the candidates to introduce themselves and their campaign to the audience. We'll start with Kina Collins here. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you to the UIC Dems for hosting this and all of the partners. I am Kina Collins. I am born and raised on the west side of Chicago, and I'm running for Congress because this moment demands more than representation, it demands courage. In my time being raised on the west side, I have understood the pain of divestment and the power of community organizing. And I spent my entire life building that power with my community. When I fought to end state-sanctioned violence, fighting for justice for Laquan McDonald, when I co-authored the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act to codify reproductive health care here in the state of Illinois, and when I led one of the largest gun violence prevention nonprofits here in the state of Illinois with 300 grassroots organizations. My campaign is not funded by corporate PACs. We are funded by the people here in the Illinois 7. And people who believe that they belong in the government as well and have a say in the government.
Candidate, your time is up.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, the timer is
Timer's in the back, by the way. Keep an eye on it. Candidate Ehrlich.
Hi, my name is David Ehrlich. I saw when ICE came into town, and the last time I saw it was when I was a little kid in Detroit. There were guardsmen on the street, and I couldn't believe it was happening here. So I thought I had something really important to contribute. I've worked in public policy for 43 years. I'm an adjunct professor here, right at UIC, but don't my bosses that I'm doing this. I worked on the Hill for 23 years. I worked for Claude Pepper and Charlie Rangel. Charlie Rangel is a co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus. I worked for the Government Accountability Office for 15 years, looking for fraud and abuse and waste. And I've been teaching for the last 21 years. A variety of courses, 25 different courses that are related to this topic. And so I feel like I'm pretty well qualified to be in the Congress. I've done the work for about 7 years, and I'm asking you to allow me to do it for you.
Candidate, your time is up.
Get more than do.
My name is Dr. Thomas Fisher. I am the son of the South Side. I grew up in Hyde Park to children of black strivers, as a child of black strivers, who taught us that you had to work twice as hard to get half as far. I took those lessons to become a physician at the University of Chicago, where I take care of the same community that raised me. I've also used those lessons to work in the first term of the Obama administration, trying to improve the same healthcare system that disadvantages so many of us. When you've been by the bedside on the days that define our lives, you recognize that 1, we have shared humanity, 2, that the neighborhood and communities are incredibly important, and 3, that it is policies that shape our lives. And those policies are real. Now that Donald Trump has taken away 17 million people's insurance and unleashed ICE on our communities, it's time for us to reclaim our government, to create Medicare for all, to restrain ICE and make affordable our lives.
Candidate, your time is up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Shawn Ford, State Representative, and I would say that I've been appointed to chair of higher ed appropriations, and I've been the chair of higher ed appropriations in Illinois for about 5 terms, where I do $3.5 billion budget to fund our public universities and our universities here in Illinois. You know, the greatest place to have forums today is right here on college campuses. We need to make sure that we hear from this generation, the generations to take us forward. As a state representative, I've funded the AIM High. I funded the MAP grants for Illinois. I funded the early action for behavioral health on college campuses. I've also funded test prep for college students so that they can become professionals without having to pay for the test prep. It's very expensive. My daughter is a college student and time is up.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rory Hoskins. I serve as mayor in the village of Forest Park. It's a suburb west of Chicago. I've served as mayor since 2019. I served through the COVID pandemic. I was the first person of color elected to serve in any role in Forest Park. I would suggest to you that I've been a change agent in Forest Park. Before I became the mayor, Forest Park did not recognize any kind of June celebration for the LGBTQ community. Before I became the mayor, Forest Park did not recognize any form of Hispanic heritage. Before I became a commissioner, Forest Park did not recognize the Juneteenth holiday. In my time as mayor, we've elevated women into leadership positions. We've adopted pay equity. Prior to 2022, no woman department head made more than 5 figures despite their experience. We changed that. I want to take my experience and bring it to the 7th district. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out. My name is Showalter, and I'm running for Congress in Illinois' 7th Congressional District, where I was born and raised, because I believe we need a representative with clear moral vision. Somebody who can fight against oligarchy and authoritarianism and recognize that they're part of the same story. I can fight against concentration camps here and against a genocide overseas, and fight for big swings. Medicare for all, a national public works program for housing, a Green New Deal. I've done this work for years at the federal level. I'm an antitrust attorney. I worked in Congress in oversight. I worked at the Federal Trade Commission, at the Department of Justice, and the White House, overseeing dozens of agencies. You know, we are in a crisis. And in a different time, maybe we could have somebody here who just has the values but not the experience. In a different time, we could have somebody with experience whose values we could cajole to match our district. But this is not that time. We need somebody who can hit the ground running on day one and hold this administration accountable and build power for big swing progressivism like this district deserves.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Anabel Mendoza. I'm a proud, lifelong Chicagoan, Latina, and raised on the southwest side in West Lawn. I'm also an immigrant rights organizer. For the past nearly a decade, I've been working on the leadership of the immigrant rights movement, fighting to make sure that our communities are protected. I've helped to lead national coalitions to block tens of billions of our taxpayer dollars from going to ICE and CBP. And I want to say that we don't just need to listen to the younger generation. It's time to let the younger generation lead. We need new blood, we need fresh energy, partnered with sharp strategy that are going to go into office and get things done on day one. That is exactly what I'll be laser focused on doing, is delivering for the people of the 7th District, making sure that our economy works for us, that we invest in healthcare for all, public education, a pathway to citizenship, and good paying jobs that actually give people a livable wage. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to the UIC Dems for hosting this. I'm Anthony Driver Jr. I'm a 4th generation resident of the 7th District. I am not a career politician. I am not a person who comes from machine politics. My leadership did not start behind a podium. It started on a picket line. I'm a person who's been deeply impacted by gun violence. I'm the executive director of the largest labor council in the Midwest, and also a city public safety commissioner. I was the person who led the coalition that led the fight to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I was the person who helped to deliver paid leave for all in the city of Chicago. I spent my life fighting on behalf of working people. I believe in universal health care, not because I have the privilege to join this fight, but because I know the necessity of it. I led 13,000 nursing home workers out on strike during a pandemic when we had to figure out how to socially distance and picket the boss at the same time, where they were providing health care to people, but they also couldn't afford the same health care they were providing. I'm in this race and building the largest coalition that this district has ever seen. I'm also a Congressional Caucus Pack endorsed candidate. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jazmin Robinson, and for over 13 years I've worked in the corporate world in HR. My whole job is building, designing, and managing employee benefits and systems, so that's medical, dental, vision, disability, 401k, compensation, payroll. I basically do the work Congress is supposed to do, but in the private sector. And I don't just do this nationally, I do it globally. So I see how other countries invest in their citizens by providing universal free healthcare, education, that includes childcare, public colleges, and trade schools, and they actually give true access to our government. I'd like to ban all PACs and all lobbyists and move to publicly funded elections, because PACs, lobbyists, and the 1% by our Congress representatives. That's why they don't represent us, and that's why we will never have reform. If we don't do that, no matter what anyone says, we aren't going to get those benefits. And also a living wage with credits for small businesses so we don't hurt them. And on my website, I show exactly how we can pay for it. By having fair taxes like other first world countries do. Maybe stop giving $4 trillion in credits to the corporate world, and then we can actually have our resources. Thank you so much.
Hello, Democrats. I'm Attorney Richard Boykin, and I'm running for Congress because I want to disrupt the status quo. I'm like Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Look, I used to be a county commissioner, and as your county commissioner, I'm the guy who got rid of the sugar tax, got rid of the tax on feminine hygiene products, and banned law enforcement from choking people when they arrest them. I'm the only person up here who's already done the job. I served as chief of staff to Congressman Danny Davis for 10 years. And I'm proud of the service and the work that we were able to do and things that we were able to accomplish. I have a plan. The Bible says that my people perish for a lack of vision. On my website is a plan to lower costs, create more jobs, and make sure that every neighborhood is safe. I'm Attorney Richard Boykin, and I'm delighted to be here. Look forward to your questions and hope to earn your support. Thank you.
Squad. Melissa Conyears-Ervin, it is so great to be here with you on this evening. I can certainly talk about my experience. Illinois State Representative during the time when we had the chief bully, Bruce Rauner, was in office. During the time as city treasurer, I divested from fossil fuel companies. I've stood up to Donald Trump from divesting in his authoritarian regime. But here's why I'm running. Because it's personal. I'm not only the mother of a 9-year-old daughter and the daughter of a single mother, but I'm helping to take care of my sister. And when I say helping to take care, I do take care. I'm the caretaker for my sister, who is a senior and is disabled. So when Donald Trump is in Washington, D.C., talking about cutting Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP, it's not something that I see on the news. It's not something that I read in the newspaper. It's personal.
Buenas noches. Felix Tello. I was an immigrant in 1964. My parents brought me from Colombia. And I've been in Chicago pretty much most of the time, although I've lived in 7 other states. I survived as an executive technology engineer and process improvement engineer. About 20 years ago, I set a path to bring direct democracy to the country. And just a couple days ago, we rolled out another version of an application where you vote on bills directly. You can download it, it's free. It's called Vote Our Way. And just grab one of my cards and you can just quickly take a look at it. My agenda is your agenda. You guys are what tells me as a congressperson to actually vote on it. I don't have to come up with a platform. You already have your platform and you know what's important to you.
All right, we don't let's ask like it's the older applause, please, just so we keep things moving. Second thing about the mics, there should be one mic for every 3 candidates on the stage. So if you pass that, so we can go around back to where it started. So if you're sitting in front of the mic, it should be the person to your left, the person to your right, we can share a mic with. Now we're going to get started on our next segment, which is policy and political questions. You have 45 seconds each to answer the questions. The first question, age is becoming an increasingly prevalent factor in the primaries. Can you all speak to the role of age in our politics in determining whether or not someone can represent the district based on their age and the age of their constituents? Kina Collins, will start with you.
So I do think that this is an important factor in our democracy right now, especially considering what has happened in the November election, where we lost the House, the Senate, and the White House, and for the first time in 20 years, we lost the popular vote. There is an extreme disconnect from party leadership, which is significantly older than some of these districts, like Illinois 7, that the median age is 35. I think that our party leadership is also missing another key part of leadership, which is mentorship to the next generation. And so I do think that we need to build more caucuses that express a multiracial, multi-generational future for our party, and that is what our campaign has been building. Right before I came here, I actually had a senior town hall. So
your time's up.
thank you.
As the person with more gray hair than anyone else, let me say that I'm young enough to be Danny Davis's son. And let me say, I teach students every day, and I feel like they tell me a lot about what their problems are. I don't think age is a barrier for me. I worked for Claude Pepper when he was 89 years old. He was still a great representative. He was the chairman of the Rules Committee. I'm in pretty good shape. I qualified for the Boston Marathon 3 years ago. I wasn't going to mention that, but since this is the question, I'm going to. So I think I'm pretty qualified to represent younger people. I listen to everything that they're saying. I know the problems of younger people are serious. People are not getting
Kenny, your time is up.
jobs.
The issues that this district faces are ancient. They're hundreds of years old. The segregation that divides our city was not created recently. And so it's important for none of us as leaders who will take this position to think of ourselves as the hero that's going to solve this problem, but as the person who's holding the ball and handing it on to the next generation to continue to strive for a more just and equitable society where we measure success in the length of our lives. When folks remain successful and remain effective, they should remain in seat. But they should also plan succession so that each generation has its opportunity to lead and carry this ball of justice forward. That means our generation, your generation, and each generation subsequent.
I think the age, when you talk about young, I don't think that our democracy should fear the younger. I think we should fear the older. I think there is a problem with people staying too long in Congress, not making way for new innovative ideas. You know, I was a Bernie Sanders delegate, and I really appreciate how Bernie Sanders brings up the young people and puts them on the stage to make sure that they have voice. And I agree with my colleague here. That's why Congressman Danny K. Davis has passed the ball and said that I want to support you, Shawn, for Congress. And I want to continue to march and fight for the generations to come. Shawn.
Excuse me. I don't believe in age limits per se. I began my career in public service very early. In my 20s, I was an intern working in a nonprofit that Reverend Jackson started. So I've been in the community for decades, learning some of the issues in this community. I've lived in the 7th District since I was in my 20s. I think that an effective leader has their finger on the pulse and can effectively represent their constituents. I would not see myself staying in Congress more than, say, 6 terms. I think that's a long time, 12 years. As a commissioner, I limited myself to 8 years, and I'll just leave it there.
Doing this job right is a burnout job. Every day you need to be waking up and meeting with people in the districts, meeting them where they are, not even just holding town halls, but going out and finding them. And it also means when you're in DC, using every waking moment of your time to fight for them. This should not be a job that you can retire into. There's a reason why I support term limits. There's a reason why I support the public financing of elections, because this type of advocacy, representing somebody in this way, requires a ton of energy. Frankly, we shouldn't need term limits. People doing this job right should want to be out of there in a couple terms anyway, because they've been working so hard that they want to take a nap. But that's not the world we live in. And so I would absolutely support the mechanisms that make it so that people who are sitting there, sitting on our power, don't get to stay there.
So glad this question is being asked. I am the youngest candidate up here. I'm the only candidate that is representing Generation Z. And I'll say this, that in and of itself, being young, is not impressive. What's impressive is that our generation has always had the pulse on moral clarity. We have always been the ones to know right from wrong, when even the generations older than us have continuously funneled billions of dollars towards ICE and CBP, billions more towards corporations, billions more towards genocide abroad. Young people have the pulse on what is needed in this current moment, when we are facing crises after crises after crises. I absolutely support term limits, and I also support not just listening to young people, but actually ensuring young people have a seat at the table, shaping policy, being a part of our offices, being a part of our staff. That is the kind of future I'm fighting for.
So I absolutely wholeheartedly endorse term limits. No person should be able to do more than 5 terms as a congressperson. If you're in the Senate, you should be able to do more than 2 terms. That's 12 years, because they do 6-year terms. The entire system of the United States Congress is archaic. I've been a federal advocate. I'm a labor leader. I just told you all that I lead the largest labor council in the Midwest. I will have a hard time getting on the labor committee as a freshman in Congress. Should Dr. Fisher win the seat, he is a ER doctor, well qualified. He will have a hard time fighting for Medicare for all, because he won't be able to get on a committee that actually fights for that, because he's a freshman in Congress. The only way to fix this is to reform the entire system. People need to sit down after 10 years or 12 years if you're a senator.
I do think there needs to be a cap on age, period. There is a minimum age to be a president. You have to be 35. We should not have 80-year-olds in Congress. We should have a cap on it. It could be the retirement age. Also, we need to ban lifetime appointees. That should not be in our government. And, Jeremy, you brought up committees. To get on a committee, you know what Congress representatives have to do? They have to pay a committee tax to their Democratic or Republican Party, hundreds of thousands of dollars to up to $1 million. And you know how they do that? They have to call donors, the 1%, PACs and lobbyists, and beg them for money so they can pay their Democratic Party or their Republican Party to even get a seat on the committee. This is blackmail. This is how corrupt the system is, and this is why we need to stop it.
I think it was Aaliyah that said age ain't nothing but a number. But look, let me say this. Congress is broken. This question really goes to what Congress is all about, and that is seniority. The longer you stay, the more power you accrue. In other words, you have to stay a long time in order to become a committee chairman. So until we change the broken system, people are going to be encouraged to stay as long as they can. That's how you amass the power. That's how you can be able to bring back billions of dollars, because you're a committee chairman. But I support term limits, and I'm a fervent believer in this democracy and that it will survive. And we'll get the gangster out of the White House. Thank you.
So I think the reason this question was asked is because younger people, and I think I'm young, I'll say younger people, do feel left out of the Democratic Party. And at the end of the day, we all have a part to play. I think this me against you has not gotten us anywhere. We have to work together. That means that your voice is important, mine is important, his is important. And so an example of what I do, even now as city treasurer, even when I was Illinois state representative, I have always embraced young Democrats. That is something that is very important because we want young people, even from high school, to be involved. Thank you.
Every time I hear Dave talk about age, I'm expecting him to say he knows Benjamin Franklin. This is a very concerning comment. 2 comments were made about age, and I think people are looking at age, much like I would discriminate against color, I would discriminate against age. It's our obligation, it's our constitutional right to be of any age. My grandmother would have smacked me at 100 years old if I ever called her too old. I'm going to say a little anecdote. When our founding fathers, our 55 founding fathers, their average age was around 40 years old. And the one senior who had the experience and the wisdom that keep our Congress together was Benjamin Franklin. And he was 70 years old, and he hustled. He hustled like no one else to keep this country together and to create the Constitution that we now have.
All right, thank you very much for your answer on that question. The next question will be starting from that end of the table, so Felix will be going once more again. Let's take this off. Next question. Our next question. Much has been said about the influence of APAC, the United Democracy Project, and other special interest organizations in congressional races around the country. What do you have to say in regards to PAC money in this race?
I don't understand why you, as voters, just so simply say, are you going to represent me or are you going to represent some special interest? I've already said to you that I'm taking an oath to represent your vote on this law act. So that's the only voice I'm listening to. Anybody else gets kicked out of the office. You come to buy me or you come there, they don't get a say. So either you can trust me to kick them out and you can match up my votes with your votes, and that would be the integrity that I would bring. If I match on 90% of your votes, I would say that I'm being high integrity and actually following what you guys asked me to do.
In this congressional race, there are 4 super PACs. 4. I think what's important is that there is a broad range of support for any candidate, so that when we go to Washington, D.C., we represent you. Secondly, I would say, because there may be questions in the room, it is very important when we talk about a broad amount of support. I am so encouraged every day to be supported by elect Democratic women, which is comprised of Democratic women in the House of Representatives who would like to see more women in Congress. Why? Because we get things done. I was so humbled the other day when I received a donation of $2.50 from a young woman in New Mexico because she wants to see women representing us in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
I'm proud to have not taken APAC money because I think that they bought Congress. In fact, they bought folks in the if we want to take our government back, we got to get dark money, we got to get PAC money out of the Congress. We got to overturn Citizens United. It was a bad decision by the Supreme Court. And so we have to make sure that we take our government back. It's a government of, by the people, of the people, and for the people. I'm proud to say I'm unbossed and unafraid. I'm Richard Boykin. Thank you.
So, I said earlier, we need to ban all PACs and lobbyists because in overturning Citizens United, that's not enough. Princeton University did a study and they confirmed The bottom 90% of the income earners have near zero impact on the laws Congress makes. It's only the top 10%, so that's past lobbyists, corporations, the ultra wealthy. I truly believe we've never really been a democracy. We've always been an oligarchy. And the only way we can get past this is by banning PACs and lobbyists and moving to publicly funded elections. And honestly, that should be every litmus test for every member of Congress and Senate. I am only taking individual donations. I'm not taking PAC money, I'm not taking lobbyist money, because I'm not bought by anybody. I represent the voters, and I'm not gonna sit there and dial for donors for 5 hours of the day begging them for money. I'm actually gonna do the work.
Okay, your time is up.
So, I haven't taken a dime for Maytag, and I won't. This is a very tough question for me because I feel this personally, how cynical this is. APAC was originally with Jason Friedman. It was widely reported. When it started looking like he didn't have a path, they hedged their bets, and they decided to buy a black woman candidate. What does that say to my community? The question you should be asking, I have a PAC supporting me. It's made up of SEIU members who are low-wage workers who got my back and I got theirs. But what does that say? Ask the question, what do they want in return for $800,000 a month? A week. What does that $3 million get them? Are they loyal to you? Or are they loyal to this PAC full of Trump and MAGA donors? It's disgusting.
So I'll never take a single penny from corporate PACs or APACs, not now, not ever. But I want to be very clear that there are candidates up here who are bought and sold. Melissa Conyears-Ervin is one of them. And I'll tell you right now, Melissa, you should resign from your post because you've been a horrible city treasurer. And on top of that, you also take APAC money, and you are not here to represent the interests of the people that are right before you. In addition to that, Jason Friedman didn't have the courage to show up. Guess what? He's getting APAC aligned money as well. And, you know, Anthony, I really like you, but I also know Michael and Carrie Sachs gave you $7,000, and they are some of APAC's biggest donors. So I want to know if you're going to return that money. Okay.
I will remind candidates, you have a 30-second rebuttal, 1 rebuttal to be used during the entire debate. Just so you know that.
Oh, I can respond?
If you want to, yes.
Yeah, I
only
don't
got one.
I'm happy to, more than happy to. I don't know him. He called me, he said, you are a public safety commissioner, I appreciate your work. I give a lot of money to community violence intervention. That's it, happy to return that money. This campaign has over 2,000 grassroots donors. 2,000. This campaign is fully funded by the people. I probably have 4 or 5 max donations of $3,500 to the entirety of this campaign. This campaign is fully supported by working people.
Oh, was that?
Yeah, you get it.
Yes, if you'd like to use your rebuttal, it's 30 seconds.
Sorry, we didn't want to keep talking.
To think that I will resign from city treasurer because I stood up to Donald Trump is insane. That's number one. Number two, I am a black woman born in Inglewood, raised on the west side. I don't have to prove anything to anyone, and that I will not turn my back on my community. If you think that I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. and vote against myself, that is insane.
I think we should be quite clear here. The call for a resignation is not because you are not going to represent yourself. It's because you're representing yourself and not the people of this district. This district deserves people who will not take a single cent of special interest money. It's a reason I reject corporate PAC money, APAC money, crypto money, all of the money that is flowing in to support just a couple campaigns on this stage. And broader than that, we need to make sure that we have a system that doesn't just ban Citizens United, but stops these giant billionaire-funded monopolies from buying our politics in the first place. This is what antitrust and anti-monopoly laws are there to do. And if we don't take back our democracy from these giant corporate interests, we're going to keep seeing candidates like Melissa Conyears-Ervin taking millions of dollars from the most pernicious PACs in America.
finance campaigns. I've had a real hard time raising money in my own campaign, but I'm proud to say that I've had small donations from over 1,000 individuals. But I do want to say that there's too much money in politics. It's very frustrating to run a congressional campaign when you have to spend so much time asking for funding. So for those reasons, I support publicly financed campaigns.
So I would say that running for office is very challenging. And when you stand up for the people, you actually get punished. I was charged with 17 counts of bank fraud back in 2014. And because I supported legislation to actually regulate crypto, there's ads that's dark money being used by people that actually run crypto saying that I was convicted of bank fraud and tax fraud. That's BS. Check the record. Every count against me was thrown out, all 17, by the feds. And so we need campaign finance reform in America.
We don't get out of this. We don't get out of this until we fix campaign finance reform. And with a better microphone, it becomes clearer. There's too much money in campaigns. From the beginning, I've made clear I did not, will not, and won't, have not taken AIPAC money. I've signed the pledge for In Citizens United. I will not and have not taken corporate PAC money. And I have more than 2,500 individual donors that have fueled my campaign. The only way this happens is when Democrats as a group swear off these dark dollars. You cannot serve both the billionaires that fund people and also the people who need to be served. There can only be one master in this.
Our current super PAC system is ridiculous. It's designed to take the vote away from individuals. And there's no way that you, as an individual, can compete. The Supreme Court has said that one vote does not, $1 equals one vote, and one vote. How's this? So we don't have one person, one vote. We just don't have it. And super PACs are allowing that to happen. And they have these ridiculous laws that say there can't be any collaboration, coordination between the campaign and the funders. That's not happening. FEC isn't enforcing it. I don't want any foreign governments to decide what the policies are going to be here in Inglewood, Austin, Lawndale, and I'm sure they are, whether it's real or Inglewood.
Can't believe your time is up.
So I'm the only candidate up here that AIPAC actually spent money to oppose. In 2024, AIPAC spent money opposing me because I got arrested with 130 other community members outside of the Israeli consulate calling the genocide exactly what it was. And then they came for us. Melissa Conyears-Ervin, you do not get to hide behind a blackface in our community when you are selling us out. You do not get to say about Donald Trump when you're being funded by the very people that Trump is being funded by. And so when you all are seeing these commercials and you are seeing what folks are saying, understand that we are not for sale. And the greatest office in this land is the office of the citizen. And you need to elect somebody that makes it clear. Our communities are not for sale. Our vote is not for sale. We are not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you all for your response to that question. Before we move on, just want to mention, please try and refrain from direct personal attacks throughout the debate. We're going to do something on policy, and we're trying to hear your answer on policy, especially more about yourself as candidates. So, the next question I'll pass it on to you now, then.
Right. Populism has become increasingly prevalent in our politics, which many have lauded as being responsive to the people, we can also see how populism leads to bad policy in the Trump administration. How do you weigh the positives and negatives of populism? We'll start with Felix Tello.
Thank you. This is not the first wave of populism anywhere. Our country has gone through several waves of populism, and it will always be here. There's times when we get so protective of our society that the populists come out and the Christian nationals come out, and everybody says we need to keep everybody outside the country. And that is what the Heritage Foundation is focused on. So the way you defeat populism is you don't be populist, right? You have to talk about, we live in a global community. We benefit from being part of that global community, and our economy depends on that global economy today. Thank God this is the Supreme Court voted against the tariffs that Trump did. And so don't worry so much about populism, we just need to keep fighting.
Find time to say, don't call names, but they can keep calling my name. This isn't the first time anyone has came to fight for me. I've been fighting all my life. And if you think that anyone on this panel will scare me to get out of this race, you're certainly confused. Because I'm not going to fight you. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to go to fight Donald Trump for my baby, for her peers, for my sister, for those that are disabled and the most vulnerable. I said it once, I'll say it again. I am tough and nobody tells me what to do. When I say that I am fearless and I am a fighter, it didn't start today. Check my track record. I fight for my community. This is not talk. And by the way, by the way, my mother always taught me that folks can fix their mouths to say anything. Wait, hold on. When I get through talking, I'll pass it.
Oh no, we've got 45 seconds for each question. Those are the rules that were agreed upon. And that's how we're going to do it. Next candidate. Everyone, please say thank you, Jamie, for bringing our microphones here. He is up away for
The real deal is this. The things that Dr. King fought for in the 60s and gave his life for, we're still fighting for today. And why is that? It's because we've elected people to office who have not fixed the problems. So there's nothing wrong with fighting for a constitutional amendment for the right to health care. There's nothing wrong with fighting for a constitutional amendment to make sure that everybody can get a quality education in this country, and making sure that we can allow students who go to public institutions to go for free. These are populist measures, but guess what? Their time has come. It's time to make it happen right now. I'm Richard Boykin. Thank you.
This mic's still not working. I'm sorry, Jamie. My bad. It's on. I do comedy sometimes for fun, so I know how to work the mic. Okay, my time starts now. Thank you. So yeah, populism, not great, but I think one of the horrible things that's happening in our government really is the parasocial relationship voters have with elected officials. I say this as someone running, no elected official or candidate is your friend. You're hiring them to do a job. And what candidates do is they flood you with social media and they say these triggering words that give you emotional reactions and you think, oh, that's my friend, that's a fighter. It happened with Reagan, right? Then we got Reaganomics because everyone trusted him. We need to stop for a beat and say, I'm gonna take the emotional out of this and think, what are they saying? Do they actually have a plan? Do they actually have a policy? Are they telling you what they're specifically going to do? Or are they just saying buzzwords to trigger that emotion in you? We, and I'm guilty of it too, we as voters need to stop looking at these people like they're our friends.
So So I approach this work as a union leader, as an organizer, as a person who has passed bills, who has passed laws. And sometimes it's a longer arc. We have to organize and fight for the world that we want to see, period. If our community isn't there yet, we have to organize our community and work with them and listen until they get there. I sat as the president for 4 years of a commission that started in 1970 when people started calling for community control of the police. We didn't get it until 2021. They started that cry because of the assassination of Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. of the Black Panther Party. It took us 50 years. I wasn't even born yet. That's the year my father was born. That's what it takes sometimes. And also, just because something is popular, if it's wrong, you have to have a moral conscience. There has to be some things that are non-negotiable. Some things you gotta be willing to lose your job over. Some things you gotta be willing to lose a seat over.
I think we can all agree, at least I hope we can, that there is a major wealth concentration in this country to the very tippy top. 10%, the top 10% owns over 3/4 of all of our wealth in this country. And everyday people, whether you're part of the middle class or the working class, are still struggling in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's struggling with your property taxes going up, not being able to afford your rent, not being able to afford your groceries, having to pay off tens of thousands of dollars worth of student loans. There are fundamental things that I unapologetically will fight for. Medicare for all, housing for all, wiping student debt. These might be populist decisions, and I will stand by them because that is exactly what is needed to actually improve people's everyday lives.
I want to talk about why populism is on the rise in the first place. We've seen this for several cycles at this point. People looking around at a system that doesn't work for them, and they want to burn it down. There's a reason why there are a whole bunch of Bernie Trump voters, and have been for years now. This system doesn't serve people. It doesn't serve the basic freedom that America is supposed to promise. If you can't get health care without going into generational debt, you're not free. If you can't afford your housing, if you can't afford your education or your food, you're not free. And we are watching a bunch of people feeling this lack of freedom in what is supposed to be the freest country on earth, kicking back at it. So the only way that we move forward from this is a real populism. Not one that turns around and says that we need to get every immigrant out or kick a single mother, but a populism that delivers on the values that America was built on, something that allows people to afford their lives.
We have a very dangerous wave of populism in this country right now. And I'm also seeing an incredible amount of polarization in this country right now. We're fortunate to live in one of the bluest districts in one of the bluest states. I have 4 children. 3 are done with college. And at different times, I've traveled across the country, dropping my kids off, whether it was in New York or in Washington, D.C., or in California. And I see other parts of the country where they're simply not as progressive as us. And so when we look at our party, I'd like to see our Democratic Party better reflect the diversity of our party's base. And that means having elected officials who are not career officials who stay in Washington, D.C. for over 20 years.
Populism has its pros and cons, and I would tell you that the cons, we have to look at it, and it has to motivate us to do what we need to do to defeat the evil of that populist wave. But for me, when I think about populism, I think about listening to people that struggle with substance use disorder and starting the West Side and South Side heroin opioid task force to save lives. When I hear students at universities tell me that they need mental health and behavioral health support on campus, and I put money in a budget to make sure that they can see a counselor at schools. When I hear students tell me that they cannot afford test prep, and I fight to get test prep for students so that they can become doctors and lawyers in the profession, that's what we call making sure that we listen and using populism in the right way.
People are rightfully outraged. Rightfully outraged. If you live in West Garfield Park, your taxes for your home just went up 138%. If you live in Inglewood, you spend 60% of your income on rent, and you die 20 years earlier than if you're in street or the only way that gets fixed is when people come together and fight. The problem is, it's been exploited by AI-based algorithms online to destruction and to demagoguery. The fact is, we here in the 7th District can fix this together. We can come together and fight for justice, to get us health care for everybody, to solve our housing crisis, to create an affordable living where we actually measure our outcomes by the length of our lives. But short of that, we're going to see more waves of this because the game is rigged.
The underlying solutions to populism are to address people's grievances. That's what they're worried about. Once people have grievances, they don't feel that the government is addressing their grievances, and they don't feel like democracy is working, and they see super PACs with no accountability controlling our elections. Those are the things that lead people to take extreme positions, to listen to populist politicians. So we need information. We need a government that delivers on its promises. We need to have some control of AI and the lies that are able to be perpetrated on AI that newspapers can't do, but the big AI companies can do that. So there are a lot of
Candidate, your time is up.
we can solve them.
I think in the Illinois 7 in particular, that's flanked by the West Side and South Side, we don't do enough about how these policies are connected to the pain of the people in these districts. 10 years ago, we suffered the largest public school shutdown in the city of Chicago. 29 out of the 50 of those schools were in Illinois 7. And nobody has rectified that. So when we hear about teen takeovers happening downtown, or we hear about carjackings or shootings that's happening, let's talk about the structural violence that happened to those communities before those actions happened. You can't talk about the violence in the city of Chicago or any of these solutions without speaking about the economics, and that's why populism has taken over in our party and across our country.
All right, candidates, thank you very much for your answers on those questions. Next one, I'm just gonna apologize for the mic situation, right? They don't always work, but we try and do the most of it. If they're not working for you, and if you feel you project your voice loudly enough, go for it, if you won't mind. Next question I'll ask you, 45 seconds per candidate. ICE and Border Patrol have been all over the city and all over this district. What will you do to push back against them as a member of Congress? Let's start off with Professor Ehrlich.
ICE is breaking. ICE is breaking the law every day. They're violating most of our Bill of Rights, constitutional rights, and the courts are not quick enough to stop them. Congress is not quick enough to stop them. The immediate tool that Congress has is the budget. They're starting to do it now. They should just cut the budget until ICE is reformed. If they can't reform quickly, they should just abolish ICE and start the immigration process all over again. It's not working. There are lots of things that Congress can do. Protesting and organizing on the streets is obviously something that's working and should be encouraged. And so it's just completely unacceptable that our president is invading with a private militia our cities for no real reason.
This is not a body that can be reformed. ICE must be abolished. You have created quotas to hire people who are cosplaying military in our communities, rounding up our neighbors, shooting innocent people. That is not a culture that can be reformed. That needs to be abolished. That $29 billion that was allocated towards ICE is the money that we need for SNAP, for Medicaid, for Medicare, for housing. These are the solutions that we need going forward, and we need to do it soon. Congress has the ability to restrain both funding, but also hold the kind of hearings that create accountability, that can send people to prison who broke laws, and create clarity that ensures this never happens again.
I think it's important that we recognize that there were
not trained, and this ICE must be abolished.
ICE came to Forest Park in October. ICE wrongfully detained 4 workers at Concordia Cemetery. It was on a Tuesday. I found out about it the next day, and by that Thursday, 3 of the 4 men were in office. I made sure that they all had legal representation. All 4 of them are currently represented by the ACLU. I can give you their names. We held a press conference where we denounced ICE. We described exactly what had happened. We have all the local, big TV stations. We documented everything because I believe that at some point there will be accountability for ICE. I said publicly that opposition particularly has been characterized by malice and poor training. I stick by that. ICE should be abolished.
ICE needs to be abolished and prosecuted. At this point, there is no way back to an immigration system that anybody can trust unless we eliminate this institution. And this institution is younger than me. It's younger than anybody. This is an institution that cannot be reformed. Beyond that, if we just slap a new sticker on it and don't change the underlying laws and don't provide accountability for the thugs that have rolled through our streets and kidnapped our neighbors and killed not 3, dozens of Americans, then we are never going to move forward from this. There's a reason why we do not have real accountability in this country so far, and it's because Congress has failed to act. These laws are Congress's fault, and we need a congressional representative who is going to make sure that the new immigration enforcement that we have does not allow people to pick people off the streets because of a suspicion of skin color or an accent that they hear. It doesn't allow them to carry automatic assault rifles. Thank you.
I absolutely support abolishing ICE, but as the only candidate on this stage who's actually working on the front lines in the immigrant rights movement, as the only candidate that has actually successfully led coalitions to block tens of billions of our taxpayer dollars to going to ICE and CBP, I'll tell you the issue's much bigger than just ICE alone. There's more Border Patrol agents than there are ICE agents on our streets. They're 2 sides of the same coin. All of DHS needs to be abolished. We need to impeach Secretary No. We have to hold every single one of those ICE agents accountable and prosecute them and empower everyday people to also get their due process because they deserve to have their rights upheld. Additionally, we cannot talk about this without talking about passing a pathway to citizenship. It is unacceptable that this country allows 11 million people to be undocumented when they use that as a way to exploit them for cheap labor. We know that it's what they're doing to undocumented communities, and I will always fight for a pathway to citizenship.
So I agree with everyone on the stage. ICE not only has to be abolished, but every single officer who has been terrorizing our communities needs to be prosecuted. But not just them. Gregory Rubino, Christy Long should be impeached right now. And one of the most frustrating things for me is that as an Illinois delegation with 14 Democrats, all of our congressional delegation is not calling for this right now. You might have 5 or 6. So yes, we have to do this once one of us is in office. However, we need to apply pressure to our entire delegation right now to impeach Christy Long, to prosecute Gregory Rubino, and prosecute every single officer who has been terrorizing our communities.
Abolishing ICE is not enough. Prosecuting them is not enough. Impeaching Christino is not enough. We need to impeach the president and the vice president. They violated our Constitution. In our Constitution, it says if you levy war against the United States, you get impeached and removed. And you know what? They did that when they killed our citizens. Period. And the only reason our Congress is not doing a damn thing about it is because they have been bought. You know who's profiting off of this? The prison systems. They've been bought by them. It comes back down, always. Every issue we have is because our Congress has been bought by PACs, lobbyists, and special interest groups. Other people, everyone on here is saying campaign finance reform. No. Ban PACs and lobbyists, move to publicly funded elections, period.
Abolish ICE. Hold those accountable who've committed atrocities against this country and against this Constitution. I carry it with me every day to remind me of the greatness of our nation and just in case I get stopped by ICE one day. But we got to do more. We got to make sure that, look, not just Congress, that we get a comprehensive immigration reform bill, but we got to make sure that our state legislators, our state legislatures, aren't bought by lobbyists and special interests as well, because they're closer to the people and our local government. Thank you.
Four primary duties of a legislator: legislate, appropriate, investigate, advocate. Number one, legislatively, ICE need to be abolished. Number two, appropriation, no funding. Number three, investigate. We need to have hearings at the congressional level. Number four, advocate. We need reform. As city treasurer of Chicago, I made a bold statement that really ticked off the Republican media outlet, even ticked off the Wall Street Journal, in that I divested from Donald Trump's authoritarian regime. I did that as city treasurer. You just wait till I get to Congress.
I really appreciate this particular question simply because it's the first time you've asked us what the solutions are that we're going to present. On your way out, maybe you'll grab this little flyer of mine. I have 5 acts that I intend to run in front of Congress. You can actually vote on these right now on my app. The first one is the Democracy Forward Act, and that's basically about returning the overreach that the executive branch has done over Congress. Congress is we the people, right? We elect them, right? So his violation, not only of our constitutional rights, but his violation of taking over these institutions, the Department of Justice, DHS, all these institutions, that's what we need to fix. And by impeachment will be best.
So some of you may know I ran against Congressman Davis in previous election cycles, and I called for the abolition of ICE all the way back in 2020. So I don't know if Anabel knew that, but I called for it, and when I told you all that AIPAC attacked me, they didn't send out mailers saying that I don't support Israel. They sent out mailers saying I was a defund the police candidate, because they tried to trick our community into believing we're unsafe when in actuality they're unsafe for our community. ICE is the most well-funded gang in America. And it goes beyond just abolishing ICE, which I support. It goes beyond telling Eileen Burke, our state's attorney, to do her damn job and prosecute the ICE agents here who violated laws here in the state of Illinois. And so that is what I'm going to use my belief pulpit for, is not only the abolition of ICE, but making sure that our elected officials do their
time
job.
is up. Thank you.
All right, for this next question, we're going to start with Dr. Fisher, and he'll pass it to his left. A shorter question: what's your vision for national healthcare policy?
Did you turn it off? Okay. We're gonna get this right, but we don't have a lot of time. I took care of somebody in the recent past who had insurance but was not in network, and their needed surgery left them in a position where they either had to decide to go get bankrupt or go home and fight for their vision while figuring out where to find the right place to go. We need Medicare for all. But not just Medicare for all, Medicare is actually not good enough. It doesn't cover hearing aids. It doesn't cover wheelchairs. It doesn't cover nursing homes. We need the kind of healthcare system that serves people when they are injured and sick, that can push down prices by negotiating with pharmaceutical companies, that can ensure that we have health equity by demanding it. In fact, we desegregated our hospitals because Medicare demanded that that happen. With Medicare for all, we can solve all of our problems.
Well, I know that healthcare, Bernie Sanders always fought for healthcare in America. As I said earlier, my values are right there with Bernie Sanders, and the cost of healthcare is just too high. It's putting people into bankruptcy. Prescription drugs, too high. Co-payments, too high. The women that have to go see doctors, men that have to go see doctors. I'm a cancer survivor, prostate cancer survivor. And when you look at the cost to survive in America while sending money overseas, while our families here in America struggle with health care,
Medicare for all, universal preschool, fully funded Head Start, removal of work requirements for social safety net programs. Further, fully funded NIH, a CDC absent of political interference. We need robust medical research. We need no more political interference. We need predictability in the healthcare system. We need families to have faith in the advice that they're getting from the national authorities with respect to immunizations and other disease prevention methods.
Our healthcare system is not just using. Our healthcare system has been shot through with monopoly power for years now. There's a reason why United Health Group is the 7th largest company in the world. And the solution to that isn't just Medicare for all, which we absolutely need to have. Robust single-payer care. But we need to take on the broader healthcare system. Hospitals, clinics. What are the things that we are going to do to take a really big swing here? A New Deal era investments that says we are building new hospitals and clinics across this district and across the country. Taking on the pharmaceutical companies and manufacturing some of those drugs ourselves. The only way that we move forward in healthcare is not just tackling the payer side, but the provider side. And investing in the communities that have been historically disinvested in. The only way you get culturally competent care is to invest in new hospitals and clinics on the south and west side, and the way that we get to a healthy economy is to invest in that healthcare in the first place. Thank you.
I absolutely support Medicare for all, but it does go beyond that. We know that Black, brown, and immigrant communities have disproportionately faced worse health outcomes as a result of our healthcare system in this country. So we need culturally competent care. We need care that is making sure that immigrants who pay billions of dollars worth of taxes actually are covered by our healthcare system as well. Many undocumented communities are lacking access to healthcare. We need to make sure that healthcare is affordable, that it includes vision, dental, and mental health. We've seen how this administration has blatantly targeted mental health. That is unacceptable. That is allowing people to quite literally die as a result of mental health and lack of care there. I will absolutely support fully funding mental health care and making sure that that is strengthened in our laws, that that cannot be something that is politically attacked by this administration.
Thank you.
So, I absolutely support Medicare for all. But I'm also clear that it doesn't go nearly far enough. I'm a person who was an only child, not because my parents wanted me to be, but because my mom did not have adequate maternal health access. Black women died at 3 times the rate. We have to have Medicare for all, but we have to make sure that it is culturally competent. What good?
Sorry.
Who? Sorry, I got thrown off. What good is having Medicare for all if you're not addressing specific constituencies? We have to make sure that we put riders into those bills that address the disproportionate health outcomes for immigrants, for Black women, and for people. I've been to the doctor myself and watched them struggle to find a vein. During the pandemic, our nursing home members, when they would check their pulse oximeter, they couldn't find a good reading because they have melanated skin. We need our universities, our institutions to have curriculums that are also culturally competent. So Medicare for all and some.
I'm sorry, Anthony, I didn't mean to mess you up. Healthcare should just be free. Every single time you need something, mental health, any surgery, it should be free, period. First world countries have free healthcare. We can afford it. We shouldn't be paying for healthcare. We shouldn't be paying for education. If we have a fair tax system, we can cover all this. And we can look into investing, right? Looking at if you look at Japan, they're coming out with new medical things all the time, and we don't even do research. Why? Because we have a for-profit medical industry. No hospital should be for-profit. Nothing should be for-profit. You shouldn't be making profit off of people's illnesses, period. You should be curing them. We can find cures to things, but treating someone is more profitable than curing them. And these corporations know it. It should be free, point blank, period.
Now is the time. Now is the time to recognize a constitutional amendment that says that health care is a right for every citizen in the United States of America. We're in a district right now that has more hospitals and health care resources than any other congressional district in America. But yet we have some of the worst health care disparities. When you go to West Garfield Park, not far from here, you got a 20-year life expectancy gap from a 7-train stop ride on the Green Line to Streeterville. That is a major problem. We have to close the health disparities. We have to make sure that everybody has a right to health care in our country and mental health as well. Thank you.
I remember 5 years ago when my mother passed away and I assumed the responsibility for my sister. I had 2 college degrees, and trying to navigate Medicare and Medicaid is extremely complicated for anyone. We need to redirect dollars to take care of those that need it the most. When I get to Congress, what's my plan? Stop Donald Trump. What's my plan? Stop Donald Trump. What's my plan? Stop Donald Trump. The most vulnerable in our community is under attack. And we need someone that is going to go to Washington, D.C. and fight for our community. Just like I've been doing, I intend on doing the same in D.C. Thank you.
I know some of you may be a little too young to remember this, but Hillary Clinton tried this. And this is exactly why she never mentioned it when she ran for president, because it was a huge failure. It costs, healthcare costs. So when you say to people it's going to be free, I'm sorry, it's not free. Someone's got to pay for it. So what we need is universal health care, and we need to do the model that the Europeans have done, which is a disciplined approach to their tax dollars, and they dedicate their tax dollars to taking care of people who need health care, right? We need to establish a system just like that. We need to learn from their mistakes as well, but we also need to learn how to get it done. And it's just all about using our taxes appropriately.
Kenny, well, there you go.
Can I watch Can y'all hear me? Before I ran for office, I was a national organizer with Positions for a National Health Program, organizing 20,000 doctors and medical students across the country to fight for a universal health care system. And my first primary that I ran in, I met a family in North Lawndale where the grandchild was sharing insulin with the parents because they couldn't afford it. The child had type 2 diabetes. This is a moral failing of our country. But in Illinois 7, we specifically have dealt with the rock of mental health clinics being shut down and Black women losing their lives by doing one of the most natural things you should be able to do is to give birth. That is a deciding factor for me in my birthing years about whether I would do that or not. And I think that it's beyond being culturally competent. How do we pay for it? We slash the military budget and we start investing in people.
We have 60,000 uninsured people in our district, which is totally unacceptable. We've got about 5,000 uninsured kids, also totally unacceptable. I'm in favor of Medicare for all, but I worked in the Government Accountability Office, and they did several dozen reports on a single-payer system that would be similar to Medicare for all. Congress was not interested. In fact, they retaliated against the GAO for doing these reports. So I don't care what the immediate vehicle is, whether it's a public option or whether it's some kind of a Medicaid automatic coverage. I just want to see these people covered. I'm also in favor of reducing corruption in the pharmaceutical industry and other parts of the healthcare industry. And I want clean air. That's part of my part of my platform. Clean air solves a lot of problems, and if you have both clean air and a lack of corruption,
Kenny, your time is up.
you get a lot of other things in the front.
All right. No, it happens. You know, that's debates, but we're going to move on to the next question, and it's a lengthier one, so pay attention here. All costs are rising for residents around the state, and many believe the construction of data centers will put further strain on our power grid, causing electricity bills to go up. What regulations, if any, would you push regarding data centers and energy as a whole? Representative Ford, you will start us off.
Well, I think I support the governor's new proposal that he just announced in Springfield at his budget address to make sure we stop giving tax breaks to data centers. So I think that's the first start to do that.
I serve on a board with Proviso Area Mayors. Monthly, we have a dinner or some kind of breakfast meeting where we talk about issues facing our communities. The village of Northlake has a number of data centers, and initially, the mayor thought they were a great source of revenue in terms of the property tax revenue. So he was very excited about the data centers. We've talked about the water usage and the newer technology, and from what I'm hearing, the newer models don't drain quite as much in terms of water usage. However, I do support a moratorium so that we can better study the effects of data centers. And then also we have to listen to the will of the people. Right now, public tide is against more data centers, so we need to respect the will of the people.
Do you know that Illinois is supposed to run out of power in 2032? And the single greatest driver of that energy demand is new data center construction. This is not just a crisis for costs. There are families on fixed incomes who watch their heating bills go up by 40% this winter and 80% for cooling over the last summer. It's also a crisis for our infrastructure. If we are going to be building new data centers to serve the wealthiest corporations in the entire world, then one, we need to make sure that anything that comes in is rocket fuel for our community. They don't get to come here unless they are building a ton of green new energy, they are modernizing our grid, and we're walking away with a Green New Deal in exchange for it. And short of that, bam, they don't get to come here. If their entire use is to help a 7th grader cheat on their homework with ChatGPT, then what the hell are we using them for?
So I support a moratorium on AI and data centers. We know that data centers are quite literally at the crux of raising people's electricity bills. Here in the 7th District, when you have people facing rising property taxes already, on top of that, to slap them with an even higher electricity bill that's projected to go 30% even higher by 2030, that's unacceptable. It's simply something people cannot afford. I support a moratorium because these companies need to come forward and show us that they're going to mitigate every single possible harm before they construct these data centers. And that includes the harm on our environment. We cannot afford to continue to have climate catastrophe after climate catastrophe just so that these corporations can get richer by putting up data centers in our backyards.
So these data centers have to be regulated and regulated responsibly. But one thing that no one else has mentioned here is that the people who are the experts in their communities are the folks who live there. We have to put power back in the hands of ordinary residents. As a person who fought and has a great respect for President Obama, who fought for the community benefits agreement when he built his new presidential center in South Shore, we have to fight to make sure that if a data center wants to come to a community, they have to get the permission from the residents first. And if the residents decide they do want them there, they need to have community benefit agreements in place to make sure that the people there not only want them, but they are benefiting from it. The people who are experts at this are not the people who are standing here on this stage. It is the folks who live in those communities.
Data centers should absolutely be regulated. They are hurting our environment, and I look at other countries and what they're doing. Denmark, they build these data centers underground, and they use the heat off of them to heat homes. There are ways you can do this. That's not going to negatively impact our environment. I'm not going to say it's perfect, definitely not. And I also think AI definitely needs to be regulated. There are some good things that they're doing, like AI can find cancer, they're finding new antibiotics, right? There's leaps and bounds in the medical industry, which is great. But children also use AI to unalive themselves. These
these people who are controlling AI, they need to be prosecuted. They need to go to prison because they created the system. Not only that, but it should be free for everyone because they stole. The only reason AI exists is because of our data. So we should benefit from that. We should tax them at 50% and bring that 50% corporate tax back.
Thank you.
Look, technology is coming. I'm not opposed to data centers, but they ought to be regulated. We can provide clean energy, tax incentives from Washington to do that if we wanted to. But it's not just data centers. It's your utility bill. Look at your ComEd bill. Look at the other utility bills. They're going up, and they've been asking for increases every year. Now, the folks in the state can do something about it because it's through the Illinois Commerce Commission that they allow them to raise these rates on us. But they're going up every year. So we have to get those rates under control as well. And then we got to hold the president accountable. We can't allow for any more cuts to the low-income home energy assistance program. Thanks.
Before any construction takes place in the community, we need community input. Also, when it comes to passing costs on to residents, that is something that I do not support. Right now, we have residents, especially those on the south and west sides of Chicago, that cannot even afford to eat. I went to the grocery store the other day with my sister, who relies on SNAP. The price, and I'm saying this because it is emotional, but it bothers me. The price on a family pack of ground beef is $25. You may or may not know this, but for some people that rely on SNAP, that is half of their monthly benefits. We need to make certain that the cost is not passed on to residents. Thank you, and that it's environmentally safe.
This is a nasty business with technology and the need to do this. So let's be clear, these are AI data centers. And they are sucking the lake out to keep them cool. And that is what's driving up the energy prices. That should not be transferred over to the citizens. They're going to profit from that, they're going to benefit from it in the billions of dollars. And they should pay for it all. Period. They should not be transferred. And I hope the city officials and I hope the state officials will stop that and not give them a benefit, because the threat is, if you don't do this for us, we're going to leave. And we're going to leave, and you're going to not have any jobs. And that's a nasty business. Very nasty.
So I don't think I'm going to say anything different than folks up here. I think there needs to be a community benefits agreement that is put forth, and we can put councils together to do that. They need to operate under strict regulations of clean energy when they're building these data centers. But we need to also shift to public ownership in these communities. The tech industry is one of the most profitable in America. Communities should be able to benefit from that. These data centers should not just be able to host infrastructure in frontline communities and not pay back dividends for that. All of these sweetheart deals that get cut for corporations, constantly millionaires and billionaires while our schools go underfunded, needs to stop. And if they're going to build data centers, that needs to be a part of the community benefits agreement.
There are a bunch of different.
There are a bunch of different ways to approach this. I teach a climate policy class, and so I'm torn between which way to approach it in 45 seconds. But let me start. In my campaign, I'm working against corruption, and I'm working in favor of clean air. Both of those go through the economy. We have corruption in ComEd that's raised prices 175% in the last decade. Our Madigan, the House Speaker, is in jail. The ComEd folks are in jail. So corruption is a big part of this. From the energy perspective, we really need to electrify everything and stop using fossil fuels. That's the only way we can get out of this. President is invading Venezuela for oil, which is totally ridiculous and going in the opposite direction. But we have an opportunity in Chicago to improve
improve our health, to improve our economy, to provide jobs at a living wage that can't be exported or...
Candidate, your time is up. Thank you so much.
I agree with what so many have said already about the importance of AI data centers to only be built when they're also building the same amount of green energy that is required to power them. I think the Power Act that the governor announced is a great step in that direction, but I think we need much broader regulation on AI. Jazmin mentioned how AI has encouraged people to harm themselves. We've seen AI used by law enforcement in violations of our First Amendment. We've seen AI bias influence who gets jobs and who doesn't, who ends up on a target list and who doesn't. We've seen AI take jobs. AI needs to be regulated just like any other product, and the fact that they are skating above the law needs to end in the next Congress.
All right, for our next question, we're going to start with Mayor Hoskins. As Congressperson, how would you define your role as it relates to engaging students and grassroots movements?
I said earlier that the members serving Congress should be in tune with the community. The 7th District has a number of schools and universities within the district. We're in one of them. So as your member of Congress, if you send me, I will be on the campus. I will be engaged in the community. I'm advocating for things that affect the entire district, and I've said several times that I'm ready to engage the entire district. I began my career as a social worker. I moved into economic development. Later, I became a parent. I've always been engaged in my community. And like I said earlier, I'm prepared to engage the entire community, young and old.
Maybe the most important part of the job of a representative is to represent the district, and that requires being in conversation with every part of the district, especially young people who do not engage historically in the political process. There's a reason we are building a campaign the way we are building it. That is, out knocking doors, out in campuses, out talking with everybody that we can, also on social media and meeting people where they are. Look, I investigated the tech companies when I was in Congress. I'm not here to hang out on TikTok because I like it, but it is a way to get people back engaged in the process, because engaging in the comment section is a way to get somebody into a volunteer office. And that kind of work is really important, because if you don't have those conversations, if you don't have on-ramps for people into our democracy, then you're going to keep seeing what you've seen in this district for the past several cycles. Every cycle we lose thousands and thousands of voters, and disproportionately it's young people, because there's not a way for them to get involved in the process. Thank you.
Student organizers and student movements have always been at the helm of actually holding our elected officials accountable. So I'm really excited at the opportunity to work side by side with young students in this room and beyond this room. I work for the largest immigrant youth-led organization in the country, meaning I'm working with high schoolers and college kids every single day, and we go and we lobby inside of congressional offices. We push the needle, we continue to add pressure, and we're the ones out there doing the hard work when our elected officials fail us. So I absolutely support making sure that young people are not just heard and listened to, but actually part of the process. Young people need to be reflected in our democracy, and certainly in the people who are seeking to represent them. And it is so important that we do not ignore the young voices in this district. On the south and west sides, I grew up on the southwest side. This is so important that we center the young people in this district especially. Thank you.
So student organizing is how I got my start. I'm a graduate of Howard University. My first time participating in any activism was during the Gen 6 case, where we marched on the White House. 3-4 years later, when Michael Brown happened, I organized hundreds of HBCU students across the country to go to Ferguson and stand in solidarity with those folks who are out there protesting. There's a person on my team who's dedicated and has reached out to every single college campus already. It's actually how we met, Mr. President, I believe, was that someone on my team reached out. We reached out to student boards, we reached out to everyone. And that's important, because I know that's what sparked the flame in me that made me want to fight, and I'll continue that, and I will continue for the rest of my life.
So you know how I got invited to this forum, which I think the presidents can also confirm on. I was actually canvassing right outside the Student Center. I was keen to see on my bipartisan policy. I told you I basically do the work of Congress in the private sector. And this is how we get free health care, education, child care, access to our government. And people say it's not affordable. It is. Do you know how much it would cost to get all of that? $3.1 trillion. Do you know how much we would actually get in revenue if we have a progressive and fair tax? It would be $4.6 trillion. And I'm not lying. I cite all my sources on my website. I also have an FAQ and a feedback button. And this is how we engage. The reason I was invited is because that person was so excited about this. They saw the vision, they saw the path, and they know I'm just not making it up. It took me 3 months of research to do this, and that's how we engage them, by giving them a North Star to fight for.
Kennedy, your time is up. Thank you.
Democracy is really not a top-down process, it is a bottom-up process. And as a Cook County Commissioner, I always had many different task forces. That will be no different. I will have a youth-led task force that will advise me on issues on college campuses and that will advise me on some of the struggles that you all are going through. I mean, I think that's the way democracy works. That's the way it ought to work. I think that every voice should matter and every voice should count. The reality of it is that that has not been the case. I mean, in certain parts of the district, they don't even know who the congressman is. That is a problem. And so we're going to make sure that we connect everybody. We're going to utilize technology, town halls, and task forces.
I was the first city treasurer to actually hire young adults, high school students, to come as interns in my office. Because I remember when I was raised that I was unfamiliar with the finance industry until my uncle became a CPA by trade. And then I started in accounting in college and actually decided to go into finance, because I always say we get things done. But I make it my mission to reach back out to young people and to expose them to the finance industry. I'll never forget when I met an Asian woman who was an owner of an asset management company, and I asked her, how did you get into finance? How did you get into owning an asset management company? And she told me, because she lived in the suburbs and because her neighbors were in finance. There's a saying that a child cannot be what a child cannot see. And so each and every day...
Kennedy, your time is up. Thank you so much.
I hate to ask the president, could you repeat the question? I feel like I'm in a tribe and the message got a little...
It's okay, you know, if any of you need the question repeated, totally okay. It's happened to me in class before. The question was, how would you define your role as congressperson as it relates to engaging students in grassroots movements?
Please vote. That's all. You guys know technology. Our generation before you may have invented the internet and technology, but you guys use it the best. Just vote.
I also got my start in organizing around gun violence prevention after witnessing a young person in my community gunned down, and I was even younger in elementary school. And that case started my career into youth organizing. I also co-authored the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act, where over 19 girls across the state now advise the governor and state lawmakers on public policy that impacts women and girls across the state, because we need to developing your leadership voice takes practice. And I wanted to build those infrastructures in our government for our young girls to have that. Tomorrow I'm hosting a youth town hall where 100 students across this district are hosting me, and they've started a Students for Kina group. Actual students in the Illinois 7 who are going to be first-time voters voting for our candidate.
Thank you.
I want to hear from everyone in our district. And I'm agnostic about how we do it. I'm going around and talking to people in the district, and I hear new, interesting things that I haven't heard before from all kinds of people. So I don't have a formal process for contacting them. I want to go out and meet those people in person. In Congress, I'm going to have formal and informal polls. I'm going to ask people to sign up for information on issues that they're interested in. I want to talk to them and talk to their groups. If an issue needs to be have more advocacy and more organization before it moves in Congress, I help them to do that. And so I want to contact people and hear from them in social media, through polls, through their direct contacts through our office, through young people's town halls, and through every other way that I can think of.
Students are as engaged now as they've ever been. While they may not be engaged in the democratic process, they're online organizing, they're participating in public issues. The challenge is only that we haven't been giving them the inspiration to do anything in the democratic process. I work in the busiest trauma center in the state. There are students regularly engaged in Stop the Violence work, in pushing forward the Rifle Act. We just eulogized Jesse Jackson. He was involved as a student and was working with King before he was 20 years old. The challenge is, do students find moral leaders to participate in government? Do they engage with authentic issues with clarity? And the sort of leader that does that will engage the students so long as we create the infrastructure to welcome them in and allow them to participate. The challenge is usually the leaders, not the students.
It's important to make sure that students are not saddled with debt. College has to be affordable, and that is a fight that we have to give the fight to the young people. They need to go to Washington, they need to go to Springfield, they need to be all over this country leading the fight. I want to thank one of the young people, Xavier Starks here. He's right here, the campaign who I listen to. We have a Gen Z committee, and we've been listening to our Gen Zs, and they have given this campaign a boost, and they have taught us how to make sure that nothing for them without them. I have listened to the young people, and they have fought for police accountability. They fought with me, and I fought with them to change the park, Douglas Park, led by students. It's not Douglas Park, it's Frederick Douglass Park. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your answers. We're going to be moving on to our audience submission section. We got some questions submitted by members of the audience who might be in attendance right now. And I'll start off with this one from Rodrigo, who lives in Chicago. He'd like to ask the candidates, do you have plans to provide relief to people with student debt? We'll start off with Mr. Showalter.
Yes, absolutely. One of the major reasons why the economy continues to slow is because we have classes of people, myself included, who are graduating from college with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. Under the Biden administration, there was a modest proposal to forgive $10,000 of student debt. And look, it's a baby step, but the only way that we get the economy actually moving again and allow people the dignity that they would have to get a real education is to forgive all student debt and create free public college, free trade schools, so that the pathway to educational attainment is actually available for people in debt. This is foundational work because we know education has always been the pathway to economic mobility in this country and the pathway to a dignified American life. Thank you.
I can speak as a first-generation college student who certainly has a lot of debt who still need to pay off. This is something that falls harder on students of color, first-generation students. We know we're the ones who are disproportionately impacted. We're not the only ones, but we are disproportionately impacted. I certainly support wiping student debt because this is also about wealth building. When you graduate from college with a degree and suddenly you're spending years, maybe decades, even paying off debt, as opposed to actually generating your own individual wealth, that's unacceptable. You worked hard for your degree. I certainly know I worked hard for mine. And it's important that we go out there and we're able to actually implement those degrees, build up our wealth, and make sure that that is building generational wealth as well for our families. So I fully support tuition-free public colleges and wiping student debt.
So this is an issue that means a lot to me. I come from very, very, very humble beginnings. I'm the only man in my family that ever get a chance to not only graduate from a four-year university, but to have a chance to attend. And to this day, that is still the case. And I'll never forget the pit in my stomach that I felt when I realized that running for Congress means you have to expose your personal finances. That you have to fill out a form and tell people how much student debt you have. I remember being embarrassed by it. This is one of the biggest things that is holding us back. I fully support erasing all student debt. For just the cost of one aircraft carrier, we have 19. every single student in this country can go to school for free. I also take this time to remind all candidates up here that you do have to file your personal finances because not everybody has done that. That is something that is important. Transparency is important. That's why we can call people out.
Candidate, your time is up. Thank you.
File your personal finances.
Not only should education be free, but childcare should be free. We start learning right from the beginning. Other countries, they invest in their citizens, and we can do it now. Our education used to be affordable when we had fair taxes, and then Reaganomics happened. And now people are buying our, every single thing, every issue, y'all, every issue is that our Congress has been bought. They will never represent us. They won't until we take PACs and lobbyists out. And I do have a plan. That's the HEAL Act. We can afford this, and we can invest in our citizens. And honestly, that should be government's #1 job. Investing in us, investing in our infrastructure, and investing in our future. But right now, our government represents the top 10% and the 1%, and not us.
I do have a plan on my website, actually to provide for free child care, and also have a plan to provide free education for folks in public institutions. What I will say is this: for the first time in the history of our country, a bachelor's degree is no longer a path to employment. We have more college students who are actually living at home with their parents in their basement because they can't get a job. That is a major problem. We got to lower the cost of tuition at these private schools. We got to make it free at the public institutions. And we got to make sure that kids have a job or a career waiting on them at the very end. That is the promise of America.
At the time when I went to college, my mother was a union worker, a union steward. I was so proud of her as a leader. But at the time that I was going to college, my mother's job shipped overseas. So much so that I didn't know what we were going to do. And I told my mother that I was not going to go to college because I was going to stay home so that I can work and help her. And my mother told me, no one in this family has gone to college, and you will go and we will figure it out. I say all that to say, I qualified for financial aid. College should have been free for me. I still had to take out student loans. And I went to Eastern Illinois University, a public university in the state of Illinois. I think I probably paid student loans for about 20, 30 years. That is unacceptable. And that is considered public education. We need to make certain that we are fighting to make certain that we have public education funding. Thank you
so much.
I don't usually tell personal stories because sometimes they don't relate properly. But my story is I got a phone call from my parents when I was a sophomore in college. I went to SIU in Cardinal. And my parents said, we don't have any money for you. Come on home. I said, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I filed every grant, every student aid, every loan. I took everything out. And it took me, and then my wife at the time, because she also had student loans and stuff, it took us, we were 45 years old to pay off our loans. My son came to me when he was about to go to school, and he wanted to go to a better school. I don't mean that for a second, but he says to me, Dad, Biden's going to forgive all my loans. I said, please, Patrick, please don't think that. It's an empty promise. It's not going to work that way. And he was pissed when he only got so much of it, the debt, and he still has that debt.
Candidate, there you go.
We're constantly told that we don't have money to cancel student loan debt. We don't have money for housing. We don't have money for health care. But we constantly have money for tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires. We constantly have money for blank checks to go to endless wars and commit genocides in different countries. And we need somebody who's not just going to represent us, but who's going to have the bravery and courage, not be declawed by lobbyists, to call people out and invest that money back into our communities. People are delaying the ability to buy homes and start families because they are strapped down to student loan debt. So yes, while we need to cancel student loan debt, we also need to include this in major federal platforms like reparations for Black folks here in the United States of America.
We need to eliminate this thing and give people the
Kathy, your time
opportunity
is up.
to generate GDP in our country. Thank you.
Student loan debt should be part of a bigger program to allow people to go to school at very low prices. Right now, our inflation rate at universities is pretty high. It's been going at about 2 to 5% over the last 20 or 30 years, which is really putting college education out of the reach of a lot of students. So we need to bring college education costs way down. We need to give free trade and apprenticeship programs. These are investments in our state and in our people. They're not giveaways. They're something that we need. That's something that gives back to the society in a number of different ways. And funding them, like a lot of different states and countries already do, is totally feasible, and we should be doing it here.
I agree with the majority of the people on the panel who are for forgiving educational debt. I agree. I also agree that public colleges ought to be free, and we certainly have the resources to do it. My grandparents didn't go to high school. It's not that they didn't finish high school. They didn't go to high school. There was no return on an educational investment for black folks in that time. In the 60s, that changed. Brown v. Board changed things. All of a sudden, people could go to school. My parents were educated. Our schools are now as segregated as they were before Brown v. Board. We no longer have an educational department that will protect our children if they need help, reading help, ADA, Title IX, all on the chopping block. This transformation needs to extend beyond simply those of us who can go to school being able to afford it, but we need a top-to-bottom reformation of our educational system.
All of the candidates have great ideas, and it's just important to recognize that there are long-term goals that we have to deal with, but there are immediate things that we can do right now. We have to make sure that there is zero interest on student debt. We cannot allow for this government to allow students to pay 5, 6, 7, 8% interest on debt. That's one. Two, Congress must increase the Pell Grant to students trying to participate in the workforce. We need to send more money back to Illinois so that we can fund our MAP grants to our students that want to go to college here in Illinois. And finally, we can have the forgiveness. We need to make sure that people that want to work in the service industry get their debt forgiven.
I'm going to adopt what most of my colleagues have said up here. I fully support student loan forgiveness. That was one of the best aspects, in my opinion, of the Biden administration. He was challenged at the courts at every juncture. You know, there's the public service loan forgiveness program. The public service loan forgiveness program rewards people who in government service and in teaching. My wife is a school teacher, and she was able to take advantage of the provision for school teachers, and that meant a lot to our family. As a part-time elected official, I was not eligible for those aspects of the public loan service forgiveness. So I think that the program should be expanded, but I support the concept.
All right, our next question, we'll start with Anabel. The next question comes from Evan from Elmwood Park, and they ask, how will you fight back against the Trump administration regarding the rolling back of environmental regulations such as PFAS and pesticides? Yeah. How will you fight back against the Trump administration when they've been rolling back environmental regulations such as PFAS and pesticides?
So it's so important that one of the core responsibilities of Congress is oversight. This Trump administration is trying to take a sledgehammer to the different programs that we have seen quite literally support our communities. And that includes the fact that they quite literally have people like RFK Jr. who don't even believe in science. They have people who are part of their administration that are propagating disinformation and blatant lies about our environment, about protecting our environment, and about protecting science above all. So we need to make sure that in Congress, we are taking every measure possible, holding hearings, making sure that we are actually serving as stopgap measures. We need to not only oppose whatever kind of slashes come from the Trump administration, but we have to make
he doesn't agree with?
So the answer to this question is you build coalition. You work with people. That's been one of the most eye-opening things to me since running for office, that you see people who will say, as a single congressperson, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And that's not the way this works. You win by building a coalition of people, by building a coalition of legislators. That's how we are going to get the job done. We need all 14 Democratic seats in the state of Illinois to call for the full restoration of the EPA, to make sure that agency is fully funded, to make sure that we're taking care of our environment, to make sure that we undo what the Trump administration has done, and that we completely rebuild this from the ground up, and that all 14 of them also support a great new deal.
So, they're relentless. Every single time we put something in legislation, they take it out. They take it out, they take it out. So what do? The House has a book of rules it's 1,000 pages long. And do you know how we actually got the FCC files to be released even though they're not doing it? There's an archaic House law that they used. We need to look at those laws in there and weaponize them against this government. We need to push the limits of our laws against this government the same way they're pushing it against us. And I do agree, we need to build a coalition. Everyone talks about seniority. There's going to be so many new people in Congress. If we build our own pockets, we can take over Congress, and seniority wouldn't matter. They did it in 2018, and we can do it again. But we need to find those representatives who have not been bought.
We need to use the legislative process, the appropriations process, and the oversight process. But then we need to take it a step further. We need to use the legal process. We need to sue these folks. These folks are literally killing people. They're causing people to get cancer. They're causing people to, have different ailments that they shouldn't have. And so we need to use every tool within the kit. And I believe that the legal process, just like the folks sued them on the tariffs, which is Congress's role, we need to make sure that we hold them accountable for making sure that we have healthier communities and not communities that are suffering from illness and harm and pain inflicted upon them by them.
This affects the South and West Sides more than any community. We have seen these communities neglected. And when we look at EPA and what Trump is doing in Washington, D.C., we need to fully fund and restore EPA. In addition to that, when I talk about Donald Trump and his leadership and what he is doing to attack our communities, this is not normal. We are living in unprecedented times. And so it is important, when I talk about divestment, our money is our tool. The resources that are being provided to other entities instead of investing in our communities is unacceptable. And so just like I divested from fossil fuel companies as city treasurer, we have to make certain that we divest. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
So I don't normally agree with a lot of folks here, but I'm going to agree with Anthony. He hit the nail on the head. We need 218 votes. The big, bad, beautiful law, 217. We needed one more vote. The Senate split 50-50. Guess who broke that tie? Huh? The Vice President. That's his job to do that. He broke that tie. And we cannot get one person to build a coalition to cross the line and make some progress in some of the legislation we do. And that's how they're winning.
So I believe that we should be utilizing the levers of Congress and litigation, of course, against this administration. But I'm coming from the angle as an organizer. I think that the people need to turn up on this administration. We need direct action. We need protests. We need Congress people who are going to protect the rights for people to go out and protest. We're talking about having clean air and clean water. You can't go days without drinking water. This is a crisis that's happening across our country. And so for me, it's not just about the litigation and pulling the levers. We can build the coalition. We're going to have to activate the coalition, mobilize them, and turn up on this administration.
Go home.
I agree with pretty much everybody on the panel. I think the first thing that we have to do, and it's happening already, is that states have to step up and take on a lot of the responsibilities that the federal government had been doing before with EPA. It's a hard thing to do. They've done it before. They did it in Bush 43. So that's one thing. The endangerment finding that the administration is building as the biggest deregulation in the history of the country is completely outrageous, and that has to stop. Our air pollution is hurting our south and west sides much more than it is other areas. Wealthy people produce 4 times more air pollution than lower income people, but lower income people suffer more. They go to the hospital more, they're hospitalized more, they breathe 3 times more pollutants. There are all kinds of things that we can do to stop that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
The upside is that clean water is popular. Pretty much everybody agrees that we ought to have clean water. The fact that that is not the case is a reflection of broken democracy. We now have a federal government that does not provide clean water to those who need to drink it. We do not have food for the hungry and with SNAP cuts. We're not providing medicine to the sick with the cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. This is a reflection of a transition period in our economy and in our government. It's a time when we have the opportunity to seize control and reshape for the future. It is only in moments like this where you actually see the big leaps. When things are doing okay, we get incrementalism, but when things are not okay, like now, we have an opportunity to build things you've never seen before. Now is the time.
You know, it's important once again to go to Congress and bring money back. I was a part of 3 major bills to make sure that Illinois has clean air, clean water, and renewable energy. I, as a congressperson, will take that leadership to Washington and make sure that we're able to deliver back here in Illinois for that. This is also an opportunity for jobs. We have to remember that jobs are connected to this industry, and this is what we need to offer to our young people, innovators. And also, we have to remember the Big Ugly Bill took away science, not being able to use research. We have to get the research dollars back at our universities so that we can make sure that we prove our point. Republicans don't believe in science. I do.
The Inflation Reduction Act implemented and began the implementation of lots of beneficial environmental programs. We were investing in wind energy, we were investing in solar, and there was so much hope. We never anticipated a despot like the current president who would just attack all of our institutions. That includes our environmental institutions. I said earlier I'd like to see a fully funded EPA. I'd like to see science proceed and not be interfered by political interference. We have to recodify regulations. We have to provide a strong base so that no president can arbitrarily eradicate all of our environmental controls.
Could you remind the audience the question? I think I might have gone a little off the rails here.
Absolutely. You know, the question was, how will you fight back against the Trump administration when they have been rolling back environmental regulations such as PFAS and pesticides?
So, I worked on the rule that banned PFAS in water in the Biden administration. I helped write it. I watched as this administration has torn it up, the first of its kind, actually. But this is why I talk about how important it is to have people who not just have the values, but the experience to get this done. There's a reason why we have pesticides and PFAS, forever chemicals in all of our bloods right now, and it's not just the government, it's the fact that we have giant monopolies like Monsanto and Cargill that force farmers to use giant agrochemicals in order to produce our food and to produce our agriculture. The United States federal government used to be the lead developer, for example, of green new fertilizer technology until the Reagan administration shuttered it. And this is the critical thing that we can do, not just to fight back against cuts, not to fight back against these rules, but to reinvest in this type of work.
All right, thank you, everyone. we're going to move on to our rapid fire round. We're going to give you guys 10 seconds to answer. Please keep your answers very short and sweet. Our first rapid fire question is from Jenna from Oak Park. If you could vote for one other candidate on the stage, other than yourself, who would it be? We'll start with Kina Collins. Oh.
Y'all would start with me. I think that the candidates are really good. I like Dr. Fisher.
10 seconds. I think we've got a lot of great candidates, a lot of great ideas. I'm trying to run over my 10 seconds because this is a tough choice. But I like Dr. Fisher. I was in the room with him when he did a great endorsement with the trip. So I'll agree with the trip on that one. But I like a lot of the other candidates, so I'm not going to. I'm going to see if he earns my support in the next 3 weeks.
I respect the persistence, organizing, and focus of Kina Collins. So that's who I would pick. So we pick someone else. Well, let me just look at them. Who would want me to vote for them? No one. So no one raised their hand. You take it? All right. You got it.
I'll vote for Anabel.
I go for Felix. At least my vote can be represented. Wow. Yeah.
I'm going to give you a second time to re-answer that question.
I can use the app.
Okay, sure. I'm not sure the app works, but I vote for Reed.
I would vote for King.
I know some people said Dr. Fisher, and mentioned the Tribune, and this is how much I want to tell you how bad corruption is. The Tribune is owned by a hedge fund, and the co-CEO of that is Randall Smith, and he gave $100K to re-elect Trump. The Tribune
Your time is up.
Sorry.
10 seconds.
I vote for Driver.
All right.
I'd go for Richard Boykin.
I would say Mayor Rory Hoskins for his leadership in Forest Park.
I'm not playing up to your read, but I actually would vote for you because I think you've got a lot of experience and have a lot of wisdom that would go very far.
Next question. We're going to start with Felix here. Do you support ranked choice voting?
Yes.
Can we just also yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. You can raise your hands. Support it?
Yes.
All right. There you go.
All right. Next one, same thing. Raise your hands if you support Hakeem Jeffries, Speaker of the House.
All right. The next one. Dibs in the winner. Yes or no?
Yes.
Dibs. Chicago dibs. Yeah.
Don't take, not with my chair.
All right. Our next one is not going to be raise your hand one because it's sort of an actual question. What's your favorite restaurant in the district? We'll start with Kiki. Yeah, just present, please.
Chicago chicken and waffle. I
didn't talk a lot right now.
I'll go back authors on the west side. Gotta visit. Chubby's Char House, Forest Park on that side.
Johnny's beef. Best beef.
I'm a big fan of Peaches in Bronzeville. They have peach infused coffee, so that's a really, really fun spot.
I feel obligated to say this because it's across the street from our office, but Ruby's in Maywood.
Rick Benny's, y'all. If you have not had a breaded steak sandwich, you are missing out.
Taste 222 on Canal.
Thank you for the support of Black-owned businesses. Wiley's Barbecue on Madison.
I've been before you my favorite. And Chicago Italian food has been good. I'm not going to name a restaurant because there's so many.
Next question. It's going to be another raise your hand question, but it's going to be a bit different. Pay attention to your choices here. Which of these restaurants would you choose between? Raise your hand if you're for Harold's Chicken, or raise your hand if you're for Uncle Remus. We're going to have Harold's Chicken first.
I'm both. We have both on the west side.
And then the next one, raise your hands if it's going to be for Uncle Remus. There you go. All right, similar question, except Cubs or White Sox. Raise your hand if you're a Cubs fan. Okay. No. Now raise your hand if you're a White Sox fan.
Yeah, Southside, baby!
Right. It's going to be, again, get your microphones ready, in position. We're going to start off with this question. Favorite movie filmed in Illinois? And I'll start off with Felix.
It's along at that, I can't remember the word. It's one where they're dancing in the middle of the streets of Chicago. Yes, thank you. Ferris Bueller.
That's a tough one. I don't watch a lot of movies, to be honest.
What's not a movie? It's The Bear. The Bear.
Yeah, you can do TV shows too. Let's yes. Yeah. No? All right. Keep going.
The Blues Brothers.
The Shot for TV show, Transformers or movie.
I have two, either Batman or Home Alone. My grandfather actually used to work on the construction set, so I'm a little biased on that one.
Anabel took my answer. She's really good at this. I was going to go Batman, and I'm going to stand by it.
They filmed some of Empire in Forest Park, so I'm going to go with Empire.
Yeah, I was born in Cabrini, so good times. If we're gonna do old school, I'll do Cooley High.
I'm going to say Batman because I saw some of the filming.
So I'm gonna go horror, Candyman. Let's go. That's a real Chicago biggie.
All right, raise your hands if you put ketchup on your hot dogs.
We appreciate your honesty. All right, the final question of the rapid fire section. Name your favorite album of all time. And we'll start off with Kina.
Of all time?
Of all time.
Anything Sade. Anything Sade. Any of the Sade albums.
This is a tough one. I'll go with any of the Schulte Grammy winner albums. I know this is not a very big political answer, but I'm going to
I think the truth is it's Nas Illmatic.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of great artists, but if we pick one album, it would have to be one that came together for the people we are the world.
Purple Rain.
I'm going to go. This is the hardest question that's been asked all night. I'm gonna go. The thing that got me through college, Rory Hoskins' first album, really killed it.
Gosh, I can't narrow it down to one album, but if I had to narrow it down to an artist, I would pick Whitney Houston, any of her work.
The only correct answer is resuscitation on the word.
Y'all, I love Chaperone by Princess. That album is so good.
Stevie Wonder. Anything but Stevie Wonder is the best.
Crucial conflict. I'm West Side.
The Beatles' White Album, favorite song was Blackbird.
What a roller coaster. What a journey. I'd like to thank all of you in the audience for being there. You know, we really appreciate your support. We'd like to thank our candidates for being here. If you are a student from UIC, join UIC Democrats. We're going to be doing our endorsement for this race coming up for next week. You know, you will be able to have a voice in that. You'll be able to vote on whichever candidate you like best, whichever candidate we're going to support going forward. That's what you have to do, you know. Join us. Thank you for your support. I'd like to thank all my people on my executive board, all my UIC Council members. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much.